It's a very unique experience to watch, but also to read as an actor and to be faced with that really exciting challenge of how can I evolve with this person, and how can I make this how can I bring this evolution of this character to life.
Dan and Jessica, it's great to get to talk with you for Your Lucky Day. This is really quite the harrowing movie. I watched it last night. Daniel, I'll come to you first. You know, this started as a short film. I read that it wasn't one you initially thought to expand. What were some of the challenges in, taking that on and really branching this world out further?
I think the main thing was, I didn't want to just take the short and like pull it apart and like, okay, now that took 2 minutes. Now it's going to take 20. Like they do when they make a Dr. Seuss movie. I didn't want to do that. So I think that was like where I was very reticent at the beginning to even make it into a film. And then basically I was busy doing commercials. And so it was really until I had an idea that made sense. And then it switched over for me. Also, I got a producer had reached out asking for the rights to the film, and I realized that I wasn't okay selling them because I felt like I still had something I wanted to do with it. So at that point, I was like, well, I should probably write something if I can't just sit around and do nothing. So I had an idea about, in the short, it was a different type of person who won the lottery. And I felt like if I made that person in some ways undeserving, then that would allow me to kind of tell the story that I wanted to tell and still have the pieces work for me. So that was the big thing, I think.
Well, I love that drive because it really does touch on some really relevant things going on today. Jessica, I'll come to you next. I mean, what about Daniel's work, whether it be the original short or the script, really spoke to you to want to be a part of this project?
I love Dan's previous work. I had seen a short of his that I really, very similar to my viewing experience with Your Lucky Day. I felt like it kept me intrigued and watching and paying attention, second to second, moment to moment. I was invested in his previous work and Your Lucky Day as well. And so that's a huge factor for me especially in, I think, today's world, people's attention spans and, with viewing, whether that's film or TV or just content, and I'm not going to call film and TV content because it's not, but all of those things, the attention span there is hard. And I can admit this myself. This is not a judgment on others. This is also a judgment on me. And Dan's work, never, it didn't lack any, there was always something to grasp onto and to be invested in. So I love that about his previous work. And Your Lucky Day reads like that on the page. It's a page turner, every single page. Couldn't wait to get to the next one. Couldn't wait to see what the journey was that my character went on, that all the characters went on. And to discover like such a surprise and Anna Marlene was a gift. Myself and many others probably go into this movie having a preconceived notion about maybe who she is or what she's capable of doing. And as each page goes on, that evolves and changes. And it's a very unique experience to watch, but also to read as an actor and to be faced with that really exciting challenge of how can I evolve with this person, and how can I make this how can I bring this evolution of this character to life is all really exciting.
I think you exemplify it very well throughout the film. Dan, I wanted to come back to you next because one of the things that surprised me about Jessica's character was that she's actually the secret lead in this movie, the secret protagonist. And so yes. With that, with her essentially being the heart of this movie, what was it like, looking for the perfect person, looking for Jessica here to really, help bring this character to life?
Dan, I'm listening. Yeah. Tell me all the good things.
Well, actually, Greg, I love that you called her the secret protagonist because that's what I called her a lot. I think did I say it on Saturday? Or was that just in my mind all the time? I was like, you're the secret protagonist.
No, I think you said this. Yes.
First, that was one of the ideas. I brought up the other one, Mr. Laird, but I think for one of the other main ideas why I felt like it would be an interesting movie was the secret protagonist aspect of like, I had seen my wife give birth. And suddenly I was like, oh, I haven't seen that in a movie. I haven't seen this type of character be, essentially a final girl. So I was like, okay, that would be fun and interesting. And I could take this character on a journey and take the audience with us and like use our expectations of what that is and maybe lean into it at the beginning. So that you're like, you're kind of even more like dismissive. And then she would sort of secretly rise to the front and center of the movie. That was something that I was really excited about. And we tried to like work it into the movie, like even when we start finding her and start paying attention to her, and how we would visually represent that. And then script wise, or like really, I was lucky to have lots of people interested in the part. And I'll just be honest, and then Jessica hands down turned in the best tape. So I remember getting the video, the self-submission, and I was like, oh, she's perfect. And I remember like being, there was people who, anyways, it doesn't matter who we weren't, it didn't go with at the end of the day, but I felt like Jessica just sort of had something, and because the way she had two scenes, one was vulnerable, one was in charge, and like seeing that range from her sort of changed, was like, oh, she's the one. I just need to get her in this movie. And I remember being very nervous that she wasn't going to do it. I think we were living in New York, and there was a lot of like stuff to figure out, and there wasn't any money, and there was all these things. But it was definitely, as soon as I saw Jessica's tape, I was like, oh, she has to be Anna.
Yes, I had just moved to New York City, and I remember I filmed that. Like all I had in my apartment was a mattress. And I remember sitting on the edge of the mattress with my tripod, like on the floor, trying to cheat that I wasn't sitting on a mattress in an empty apartment.
Well, that's me.
Yeah. And I just left LA, and then it was like, come back. And I was like, okay. for this, absolutely.
Well, it's a lucky turn of fate then, and I'm glad that you both were able to find each other for this. And speaking of then coming back to LA, I mean the way that this was shot truly feels locationless, but obviously in the movie it's addressed that it is in Florida. So what was it like, finding a way that made this feel like, for both of your perspectives, making this feel like it could be anywhere, but at the same time, knowing in the back of your head it's very specifically set somewhere?
I mean, I think some of that was just in sort of the nature of, in the script, in your development phase, I always kind of called it like a morality tale, or kind of like a fable, like an American fable, I think, in my mind. So like that sort of came part and parcel. It took a long time before I even gave everybody names. Like for the longest time, I just wanted everyone to be like the name of what they were. But that was, so it was, but then at some point I was like, that's stupid. Just give everyone a name. But it was definitely one of those things that was on my mind, is that I wanted that sort of universality of it, and sort of to lean into that. But then be specific if possible with some of the location choices. And, like that ferry specifically goes to Fisher Island off of Miami, which is, I don't know how many people know this. This is like a really like inside baseball thing about Miami, but like Fisher Island is the richest zip code in America. It's where, Oprah lives, Trump's kids live. Like it's this incredibly private island that's impossible to get to. So if you know what it is, you're like, oh, that guy lives in like a Shangri-La style. And so when we went to shoot plates in Miami, there was a white G-Wagon on that boat all the time. So it was like one of those crazy, like, oh, that's you just made that up, but apparently it's real. So I think that was sort of, it was just top of mind, and like, how do we kind of hopefully speak to both at the same time? And then again, because it's a wild story, I just sort of loved the idea of, the Florida man kind of story stuff, right? Where like, here's an insane thing that happened, and Florida seems like a mecca for crazy things to happen to regular people.
That is very true, unfortunately. I see I'm almost out of time. So before I let both of you go, I actually wanted to cut off my last question and come to you, Jessica, for my last question. What was it like for you working with Angus? I mean, obviously this movie we cannot talk about it without talking about it with him, and your guys' relationship, I almost feel is as important as your partner's relationship in the movie. What was it like working with him, developing that with him?
It was such an honor. It it's hard to talk about because it's hard to think about how important it was and how much it impacted me, and how much maybe I didn't in the moment with him. Not that I didn't appreciate it, but fully like grasp onto it, knowing where we would be today and that he wouldn't be here. So it was an honor. He was an incredible scene partner, and I'm talking just in terms of him acting and being a scene partner right now. He was an incredible scene partner. I mean, I always say that when you looked into his eyes were always telling a million stories. Whether it was, whether there was something he was saying or something he was doing, whether he was still or moving or anything, you could look into his eyes and grab so much to use as an actor, which is such a gift. He was just always so vulnerable and thoughtful, and he listened. I mean, half of acting, reacting, listening. That's a very classic saying, but listening is something that I think is almost the hardest thing to do, because it really means just being in the moment with this person and taking it in. And he was the best at that. He just listened with the most open heart and soul and mind. And that alone would affect you. I remember there's a scene in the film where I have somewhat of a lengthy monologue. And I remember maybe we did 1, 2, very few takes, because I felt like it was all in there already. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to think about doing anything, because I got to just be present with him in that moment, and it all came out naturally. And then I just want to add on about not only how incredible of an actor he was, but a person. We miss him deeply, and we wish more than anything he was here to see this, here to enjoy it, and we hope that people show up and people see him in something that he hasn't done before, hasn't been in, because it's a thrill.
I really hope they do so as well. And then they also get to see both of your incredible work in this movie, because you both truly have done a great job, and I can't wait to spread the word. So thank you both so much for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it.